Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 7th, 2014 regular meeting of the Piqua City Commission. If you all would make sure that your cell phones are turned completely off, they might interfere with our broadcast signal. And then would you stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Fess.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Vogt.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Cherry. Here.
To open our meeting this evening, I have 3 proclamations, and I would ask Chris Schmeezing, our city planner, to meet me at the podium, please. Chris, I believe this proclamation is for city planning, Community Planning Month, and it reads, whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, counties, townships, and other places, and whereas community planning and plans can help manage the change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, and whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. Whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of the Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, Downtown District Design Review Board, and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Piqua. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional and citizen planners and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these individuals. Now, therefore, I, Lucinda L. Fess, Mayor, do hereby recognize the month of October as Community Planning Month in the city of Piqua. And I'm presenting this to you as our city planner. Do we have any members of the boards or commissions here with us this evening?
Don't believe any of them are present here this evening.
Okay, I just wanted to recognize them and the work that they do.
Absolutely.
And they do a great job, and you do a great job with as our city planner, and we appreciate all that you do. Chris?
I'll pass that gratitude along to the board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I have another one for you, too.
Actually, I'm going to invite some others up
Oh,
to
good.
accept this
Okay,
one.
great. Thank you. You can go ahead and applaud for this. And we have some.
Marcia, and Steve, if you come up and accept the walk to school.
And you are representing
The bike, or walk to work week.
Walk to Work Week. 2 weeks. Okay. And I'm going to read this proclamation, which reads, whereas the lives of hundreds of children could be saved each year if communities take steps to make pedestrian safety a priority. Whereas the lack of physical activity plays a leading role in rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and other health problems among children, and being able to walk or bicycle to school offers an opportunity to build activity into daily routine. And whereas driving students to school by private vehicle contributes to traffic congestion and air pollution. Whereas an important role for parents and caregivers is to teach children about pedestrian safety and become aware of the difficulties and dangers that children face on their trip to school each day, and the health and environmental risks related to physical inactivity and air pollution. Whereas community members and leaders should work to make changes to enable children to safely walk and bicycle in our communities. And whereas children, parents, and community leaders around the world are joining together to walk to school to increase awareness of the significant benefits of creating a walk-friendly environment in our communities. Now, therefore, I, Lucinda Alfez, Mayor, do hereby proclaim the week of October 6, 2014 as Walk to School Week in the city of Piqua. And I don't know which one of you want to say. And if you would just kind of introduce yourselves. And
You all know me, I'm Cindy Pearson, and I am a walker. I've been walking for about 20 years. My partner is Marcia Garrett. We have a set time and in the evening where we walk in the dark, we walk all neighborhoods of Piqua. We've had some eye-opening events, but it's been very beneficial to us. I'm very excited to see that the city of Piqua is adopting such a program for our children. It's needed across the nation. Our children need to learn how to safely get around on foot in their towns. And it's also beneficial to their health. Exercise is very, very beneficial. And I challenge you all to the Walk to Work week or Walk at Home in your neighborhood week and get healthy.
thanks, Cindy. Marcia, do you want to say?
I'm Jake Amlin. I'm principal at Washington Intermediate. I'm representing all of Piqua City Schools. We're working on a program with Chris and the city. And if I could be so bold as to approach the commission, we brought gifts for each of you. All of the students at our intermediate schools, the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, received one of these fashionable wristbands and also a pedometer to help them count their steps over the next 2 weeks. So we brought one for each of you as well.
Very nice.
So thank you.
Jake, you can go ahead and pass them out.
I bet you I
Can we
won't.
thank these volunteers for the work that they do here in the city?
Thank you.
And lastly, I'd like to call our law director, Stacy Wall, to the podium. Stacy is serving this year as president of the Piqua Rotary Club, and they have a very significant event going on this year, and that is their 100th year of service from Piqua Rotary. And I have a proclamation, Stacy, I'd like to read for you. It reads, "Proclamation recognize 100 years of service from the Piqua Rotary. Whereas the first Rotary Club was organized by Paul Harris in Chicago in 1905, and in Piqua, William Kendall Leonard, president of the Piqua Hosiery Company, sought business leaders to help the community after the 1913 flood based upon the Chicago and Cincinnati Rotary Clubs. And whereas Leonard organized business leaders to serve as a Rotary Club and had its first meeting in October 2014. And whereas after having convinced Rotary International that Piqua was able to sustain a club, it became the 135th club, receiving its charter in 2015, and was the first small-town club granted a charter. And whereas the Piqua Rotarians have given to the community for 100 years by supplying food, providing books to school children, granting money for band uniforms, providing thousands of dollars of college scholarships, providing opportunity for a speech contest on the importance of service, hosting and sending exchange students, having a partnership with kindergarten students, providing weekly reading and a birthday book to every student, providing toothbrushes and toothpaste, as well as assisting the dental clinic in dental evaluations, ringing the Salvation Army bell, and countless other ways. And whereas for 100 years, the Piqua Rotarians have heard countless speakers, including Phil Donahue, William McCullough, Robert A. Taft, and Robert Netzley. And whereas in 1990, Mimi Crawford became the first female Piqua Rotarian, and whereas the Piqua Rotary Club hopes to continue to serve locally and internationally as Rotary International has made it its mission to eradicate polio throughout the world, eradicating 2 of 3 polio strains and declaring the world to be 80% polio-free in 2014. And the Piqua Club continues to assist in polio eradication that originated when Representative Richard Adam proposed the challenge to the club in 1987. And whereas Rotary's international president, Gary C.K. Hyung, follows Chinese philosopher Confucius, who said, quote, "It is better to light a single candle than to sit and curse the darkness." The Rotary way is the Confucius way. The Rotary way is to light a candle. I light one, you light one, 12 million Rotarians light one. Together we light up the world. And whereas the Piqua Club, as it celebrates the century of service, believes it can continue its service and light up Piqua, now therefore I, Lucinda L. Fess, Mayor of the City of Piqua, Ohio, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2014 as Piqua Rotary Month, and I call upon all citizens to recognize the importance of serving our community and that the Piqua Rotary Club has served for 100 years and will continue to do so. Stacy, congratulations to you and to the Rotary Club, and I wish you the best this year as its president.
Thank you.
Did you anything you wanted to say?
We couldn't be more proud to be standing here 100 years later. We are the first small club in the United States. They had to fight Chicago back in 1914 to become a club. But our motto is service above self, and that's what we stand for. We have a very strong partnership with Nicholin. We provide every student a birthday book. And right now, what we're very proud of is our work with the dental clinic through Miami County. The school children here need tremendous dental care and work on their teeth, and the dental clinic has been able to come into the schools. Rotary has given the grant money for them to buy their equipment, their chairs, their other needed things, and they have seen a very large spike in the number of patients they have, especially in Piqua, and have they are booked solid all the way through November for that dental clinic. And in 2013, they provided $73,000 worth of free dental care. And we are just very touched that we were able to be a part of that. So we are really proud to celebrate this year. We have a very big celebration coming up. It will be at the Fort Piqua Plaza on October 23rd. Representative Adams will be giving a proclamation or a resolution from the House of Representatives recognizing the 100 years, and Senator Beagle will also be present recognizing from the State Senate the 100 years. There will be dinner and a speaker, Michael Angelo Caruso, who is an international public speaker and also a Rotarian, who will present how to engage someone in 15 seconds. So while we're celebrating our community service with the community, the speaker is a very dynamic speaker who touches anyone in customer service, leadership, sales, any of those. So we welcome anyone to attend. The tickets are $40, and you can contact myself or the chamber and make your reservation. Thank you.
Stacy, I just want to make a comment about how Rotary changes lives many times. For many years, Del Perry, who was a well-known citizen here in the city of Piqua, and his wife Dory did a lot with the exchange students for the Rotarians. And quite a number of years ago, they brought a young lady from Zimbabwe to Piqua, and she graduated from high school here. She came back and she graduated from college here with the Perry's help, and she eventually became an American citizen and now is the mother of 2 daughters, and she happens to be our Main Street director, Lorna Swisher. Lorna came over from Zimbabwe as a teenager, and she loved Piqua and ended up loving America and became a citizen, and that to me is part of what Rotary does. It changes people's lives.
It does, very much so.
Thank you. Moving on, we also tonight have our Resident Pride Awards for this quarter. And I think, Dean, we have pictures of those homes. And I do see that one of our winners are here this evening with us, or two of them. And I would ask that as we go to the second home, if you would come forward, Dick and Connie. And we'd like to introduce you and thank you. The first winner is John Burnett, and that home is at 901 Camp Street. As you can see, it's a lovely looking home, very well cared for. Our second winners coming to the podium are Dick and Connie Feitners. And the Feitners have been Piquas for a long, long time, and wonderful people, and this is their lovely home that is at 909 Candlewood Boulevard. Dick and Connie, we appreciate all the efforts that you make to keep your home as lovely and the pride that you take. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you.
Yes, just thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next, we have the home of John and Barbara Hanning at 636 West Green Street. Another lovely home. And then we have Robert and Crystal Stevenson, and that's at 325 Riverside Drive. This is one of the older treasured homes here in the city of Piqua. It's just really a lovely home as well. And the last is Danielle Isaacs at 308 3rd Street. We want to thank all our Resident Pride winners and thank them for the pride that they take in their home, the pride that they take in their cities, and all the work they do to make our community a better place. So we do thank you all. If anyone has someone that they would like to recommend for a Community Pride Award, we do have applications in the city manager's office. You can nominate someone to do that. The committee will come and take a look at the homes and then choose those persons for that quarter. We do this 4 times a year.
Yes, and we had quite a number of applications this time. We're a lot of nice-looking places.
Good, good. Well, we always can use more, so we appreciate those people who applied and nominated someone, and we also appreciate the winners very much. Thank you. Moving to our regular City Commission agenda, we'll go first to the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the September 11th, 2014 Piqua City Commission work session and the September 16th, 2014 regular City Commission meeting.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda has been approved. Under new business, we have ordinance number 13-14, and this is the first reading.
An ordinance amending sections 154.141 of the City of Piqua Code of Ordinances to allow a zoning designation change to be enacted by a resolution.
City Planner Chris Measing will provide the staff report.
Thank you. You'll recall from the work session discussion on this item, the nature of this amendment to the zoning code would allow for our zoning designation change process to be expedited. Currently, when an individual applies for a zoning change, or a business owner or property owner applies for a zoning change or wishes to change the designation of their zoning designation of their property, it's approximately about a 3-month process for them to come before the Planning Commission and go through the readings that are necessary at the City Commission level. What the Planning Commission has proposed and what we've presented in the packet here this evening is a process that would reduce that to about a month and a half. In essence, the item, we would receive the petition, the item would be referred to the Planning Commission, who then would review the request to verify that it is consistent with the community's comprehensive plan and land use policies, and then they would refer it to the City Commission, who would be able to act on it in the form of a resolution as opposed to an ordinance. So it would dramatically decrease the time frame involved. And what we hear from the business community is that would be pretty significant to them in terms of them being able to do business.
That sounds good. Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris, commissioners?
Well, we've had a few instances where we've been fighting with this in the past, where we've had to have people delay their construction because of our rules, and I think this will be a great great way to speed that up. We'll basically take a month off the whole process.
Yep.
So that's a great idea.
That's exactly right.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
Is there anyone in the audience that has a question for Chris or would like to speak for or against this ordinance? If not, with the permission, this will stand as the first reading of ordinance number 13-14. Resolution number R-100-14.
A resolution approving a maintenance agreement for the citywide fiber optic network.
Director of Technology Dean Birch will present the staff report.
Thank you. Resolution R-157-12 was approved by the City Commission on February 5th, 2013 to retain the services of FSEC ACS as a professional firm to design and install a fiber optic network for the SCADA connectivity to electric substations and other city sites for the power system and for the City of Piqua. On September 17th, 2013, Resolution R-123-13 was approved by the City Commission to retain the services of FSEC ACS as a professional firm for the fiber connectivity to additional power system and city sites. FSEC ACS completed the above approved installation and connectivity to all the various sites. The ongoing connectivity and support of the entire fiber optic network is paramount to the electronic systems operations, to the city municipal network operations, and to our partnership with ComNet Independence Fiber Network. FSEC ACS has worked with the city for over 27 years and is uniquely qualified to support the fiber optic network. Their overall experience supporting fiber optic networks such as ours and their intimate knowledge of our network and our electrical system will ensure a reliable and safe operation of the fiber optic network and municipal electric distribution system. This preventive maintenance program provides remote monitoring of the electronics through fiber track and an on-site server. This 24/7 monitoring will be completed in a manner similar to the current SCADA annual support monitoring services they provide. System diagnostics can be completed in the same manner. In addition, preventive maintenance includes a semi-annual on-site visual maintenance inspection. Also included in the maintenance agreement are the preparations to handle a major maintenance repair event and various electronic and engineering services for ComNet Independence Fiber Network connections. This item was presented to the Energy Board on August 26, 2014, and was unanimously approved by that body. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Dean. Commissioners, any questions for the IT director? If not, does anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this resolution? If not, do I have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution number R-100-14.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-100-14. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Fess.
Aye. Resolution number R-100-14 has been adopted. Resolution number R-101-14.
A resolution requesting an authorization to enter into an agreement with AT&T for the relocation of existing aerial facilities to a buried environment at 9801 North State Route 66, excuse me, for the building of the new water treatment plant.
Water Treatment Plant Superintendent Don Freisteller will provide the staff report.
Good evening. We're here this evening to really get started toward working on the new water treatment facility. One of the very first things that has to happen is the overhead telephone line that runs right along Hardin Alternate Road needs to be moved out of the way, as the new facility will span Hardin Alternate and it will be abandoned. We looked into the possibility of putting it onto the power poles along State Route 66. They were spaced too far apart, and it would add extra weight to the power lines. And as it came out, Piqua Power will be putting new power poles in and at a time after the project has started here. So we got a lot of things to do, and the phone line has to be out of the way. So this contract would allow us to have AT&T go ahead and bid the project out and move that line to in front of the power poles on State Route 66, allowing the construction of the new plant to get started.
Thank you, John. Commissioners?
Yeah, Don, would there be a big problem to wait until Power puts the new poles in to do this, and then we can just hang it aerial?
What happens if we do go ahead and bury it as we intend to? It gets it out of everyone's way, and it really we can't have to have that line moved prior to anything really starting on the site at all.
Well, the only thing is it's a lot more expensive to bury lines than it is to hang them off of a pole.
As we were talking with the AT&T designer, he looked at the option of putting poles in to do this and to put it in a conduit, and felt as though the most reasonable cost offer that we would have was to go ahead and bury the line as the recommendation is.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this resolution? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve resolution number R-101-14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-101-14. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Mayor Fess.
Aye. Resolution number R-101-14 has been adopted. Resolution R-102-14.
A resolution requesting authorization to increase the initial purchase order amount for the City of Dayton for the purchase of quicklime.
Tonight, you're going to hear for the first time from Assistant Water Treatment Plant Superintendent Bob Jennings. Mr. Jennings.
Good evening.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. At the water plant, we use two suppliers for our lime, one being Mississippi Lime, and the other we receive lime we can purchase from the City of Dayton. In years past, the City of Dayton lime availability has been quite suspect. So this year, on the initial purchase order, we decided not to put a real large amount on there. Through a billing mistake and an invoice coming in a little bit late, we actually exceeded the initial purchase order by just over $1,000. And because of that, Don and I had talked, and actually Dayton has quite an abundance of lime this year, and they've actually been kind of on us to purchase it from them. So since we felt that we had to come to the commission anyways, we'd like to increase that purchase order by $20,000, which would allow us to go ahead and then continue to purchase the Dayton lime to the end of the year. We can buy the Dayton lime. It's $55 a ton cheaper than our other supplier, and even with paying the trucking fee for that, we still save around $1,000 a load getting it from Dayton. And also the Dayton lime has a higher calcium content in it, so it's much better for us in our treatment process.
So, Bob, you'd actually be able to save $6,000 for the remainder of the year.
That is correct. Yeah, roughly we can get. We're figuring we can get a load about every 2 to 2.5 weeks. So we're looking to save around $6,000 by doing this just till the end of the year.
Sounds good. Commissioners, any questions from Mr. Jennings?
There's no way to store. Is there any way to store lime?
Yeah, we store it in the plant. We have, our tanks that we hold it in, and we can store roughly 2.5 to 3 truckloads, which is about 50 to 75 tons. I don't know the exact capacity there in our main tank. So we keep that pretty full, just so we have supply on hand.
And Dayton thinks they can supply us all the way to the end of the year?
Yeah, he's already said that he could get us the 6 loads that we have, and actually already gave us wanting our business next year as well, which is a good thing. So.
Okay. All right, because I was wondering if we could buy some to store it. If we can get it cheap, then we might as well get some extra if we can. But if we already got an arrangement for next year, then that's it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that would be great. We just really have no way to stock any more than what we can, and we keep our tanks full as much as we can.
Okay, thank you.
But the reason, Bob, that we get the lime from Dayton, it's kind of a backup because it's not always available. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
would
that's-
this be our first source and then have the other be the backup?
It just depends. Like I said, in years past, they've had, what they do is they take the residuals from the city of Troy and other towns, basically out of what we do out of our lime lagoon, and they run it through a kiln and then reclaim the actual, lime itself out of that. And they've had problems in the past with their kiln breaking down, and also they shut down yearly for maintenance. And then, of course, they, supply themselves first and foremost, and then what they have left over, they sell to other communities. And we got into that list a couple years ago. So, because it's not always available 100%, we have to have another supplier because we can't run without it. So that's why we have two suppliers there.
I think we'll take advantage of if we can get it from them.
Yeah, definitely. We can save $1,000 a load. It's quite a savings.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Bob. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this issue? If not, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution R-102-14.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-102-14. Would the clerk call the roll?
Mayor Fess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Resolution number R-102-14 has been adopted. Move to resolution number R-103-14.
A resolution requesting authorization to enter into a contract with Utility Service Company for the installation of a TRS and a 10-year service contract that will include inspection and required maintenance of the East Ash Street Water Tower.
Mr. Freisteller.
Yes, this evening we're here to talk about entering into the contract with the Utility Services. In our audience this evening is two of the gentlemen that was at the workshop we had a couple months ago, Daryl Bowling and they're here this evening to answer any questions as we go along that Commission might have. The contract we're looking at is for the Ash Street Water Tower. It would entail us sandblasting and overcoating the interior of the tank, the addition of what's called a THM removal system, which is a mixing and spraying system that would be added into the tank to help us with our disinfectant byproducts issues we have in our distribution system. As well, then, the outside of the tank would be primered and an overcoat of paint would be put on that. The services would be spread out over a 10-year period. Each year there would be an inspection of the tank. Every other year the tank's actually drained and inspected dry. Any touch-up work becomes the responsibility of Utility Services, and our Ash Street tank would be kept in good shape every year. And it spreads our cost out over a longer period of time so we don't get clobbered every 10 years with a huge bill. Right now, the first three payments take care of the initial painting and all the work and installation of the TRS system. Then after that, the payments go toward the 10-year recoating of the water tower. So even at 10 years, if we're at a point where we would have to then sandblast the outside of the entire tank, the paint part of it would already be taken care of, and the only additional cost at that point in time would be sandblasting if it was needed. But with the tower being kept up as it would be, there's a very good possibility that we might even be able to extend with another overcoat at that time period. So we would ask the Commission this evening to endorse this contract and be happy to entertain any questions you may have. And Daryl would be very happy to help us with any questions you might have.
Thank you, Don. Gentlemen, we're glad to have you with us this evening. We appreciate the very comprehensive presentation that you made for us at our work session when we discussed this issue. It's, I think, a good time to move on this because if I remember correctly, if we wait much longer, it's going to be much more costly
Very correct.
Is that right? Because something about a certain time limit that you have, Don?
Yeah, the condition of the tank now is there's a window that's very quickly closing on whether or not we're going to have to sandblast the entire tank inside and out, or if we can still get by with the overcoat. Their company is the only one that would even entertain the possibility of overcoating and extending the warranty at this time. But we are in the very end of that window, and if this was delayed, it would very possibly increase the cost nearly double.
Thank you. And commissioners, do you have any questions for Don?
How old is that tank out there?
I believe the tank was actually built in the late 70s.
Okay. Now, we have another tank up on R.W. Davis Parkway. How long will it be before we have to do something like that to this tank, to that tank up there?
Well, we're fortunate in one way. That tank was built in 2005. Typically, a coating gives us about 12 to 15 years. We are getting to a point where we need to look at overcoating that tank to be able to not have all the additional expenses that we have on the Ash Street tank at this time.
So you think possibly that we could combine the two and get a better price?
That's
a very good question.
That's a pretty big price. I think the main thing is that we continue to do good maintenance on the tank out on Davis Parkway, and hopefully prevent that's not a extraordinary cost in the future. So being that that's a much newer tank, I think we have an opportunity to take much better care of it.
Now, since we're going to be building another water tank,
Yes.
would a water tank with a cement base be easier to maintain than the all-steel structures that we have?
Very much so. When you have a composite tank as the concrete pedestal with a steel bowl, the only thing you have to maintain is the actual bowl itself. So it takes nearly half of the expense of maintenance away by having the concrete base.
I remember we had a big heated discussion over that when we built the tank out on Davis Parkway, and I was for the cement base. I lost. So I probably won't be on the commission when we do the other one, but I would like to remind the people that cement is the best way to go as far as expenditure.
That's the direction we're looking toward the new central zone tower that we're looking at in the near future. Yes, sir.
And we might just name that one after you.
There you go.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Is there any other questions for either the water director or the gentlemen who are here?
I think we had a pretty extensive work session on this. They did a good job of explaining all
Very
the,
much so, very much so. In fact, it was kind of amazing, some of the things that we learned that evening about water towers and the little straw that goes down the center that you crawl down that I would never want to go in, or how high it is up there with this little fence around it that you could fall off of, and they offered to take me up, and I just didn't think I wanted to do that. So anyway, we appreciate your being here tonight, gentlemen. Is there any other questions from the audience or any comments concerning this issue? If not, do I have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution R-103-14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-103-14. Becky, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Fess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Resolution number R-103-14 has been adopted. You can begin to restore our water tower. Resolution number R-104-14.
A resolution authorizing the Miami County Park District to file an application to the state of Ohio to participate in the Local Government Innovation Fund program.
I'll call on Mr. Smeezing again.
Thank you. This item is an opportunity for the city of Piqua to collaborate with the Miami County Parks District, as we have on some other projects in the past, to be able to leverage a resource that may be available to us to prepare a bikeway plan for the northern Miami County area. The reason for the interest in doing this is twofold. You might note that last Friday there was the dedication of the Robert J. Shook Bikeway Bridge south of Piqua, which is a significant milestone in the construction of the bikeway system through the Miami County area, in that it connects us physically, long at last, to the 330 paved miles of interconnected off-road trails throughout southwest Ohio, which is a tremendous asset for us to be a part of. The drive behind this item relates to communities north, east, and west of Piqua expressing an interest in extending the trail system to be able to connect to Piqua, because they too would like to be a part of that regional trail system, and they see the benefits that it could potentially have for their community. So myself and Scott Myers have been meeting with representatives from Covington, Sidney, Shelby County, Lockington, Miami Conservancy District, and others to look at how we can plan for and pursue the funding that would be necessary to be able to make those connections. And with our interest being that we are really at a northern hub or crossroads on that trail system, and as part of the riverfront redevelopment, we expect to be able to leverage that opportunity that represents. We think it would be beneficial for us to participate in that process and helping those other communities develop a plan to be able to find a way to connect to Piqua so they too can become a part of the arterial network. So this request would, if authorized, allow us to participate in the application with the Miami County Parks District being the lead agency, along with 4 other communities, Piqua, Bradford, Covington, and then the Johnston Farm, Friends of the Johnston Farm. All of those groups contributing $1,000 each as the local match, and then the rest of the funds would come from the Local Government Initiative Fund if we're successful with our application. All total, it would allow for a $55,000 consulting service to be performed that would provide us with that development plan, and also look at the tourism and economic opportunities that the trail system represents in terms of Piqua's position on that trail system. So this evening, we're requesting your authorization to proceed with participating in that request, and of course authorization for the $1,000 local match should we receive the grant.
Thank you, Chris. Commissioners.
So let's say we get this grant. Would we propose to run the bike path to the Johnson Farm and stop it there, and then go to Covington and Bradford?
Well, the purpose of the grant is to complete the planning work necessary to be able to identify the routes and destinations that we're aiming to get to. But yes, Covington is a party to this. Their interest is finding the best route for them to be able to connect to Piqua out at Spiker Road. Same thing with Bradford, trying to connect to Covington. And Darke County is already doing some pretty significant improvements with their trail system, and they're heading towards the Miami County line. So others, and then north, we have had conversations with Johnston Farm, and they're interested in working with us to find a way to get the trail system connected to the front entrance of the farm. And ultimately, Lockington, the Conservancy with the Lockington Reserve up north of Lockington, and Shelby County and Sidney are also interested in finding a way to connect to the regional trail system. A little less discussion to the east, but the Miami County Park District already owns a couple chunks of the rail right-of-way to the east of Piqua, and they've had preliminary conversations with others that lead them to believe they could secure the right-of-way to be able to ultimately extend the trail that direction. And then beyond the county line, the Simon Kenton Trail Association has been very active in Champaign County and completing their trail system, and they too are interested in finding a way to connect to the Miami Valley Regional Trail System.
I guess the question is, since we have some communities putting money into the pot, they should be given priority over the ones that don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we focused. We said this is the Northern Miami County trail plan,
Right.
rather than spread it too thin and reach all the way into Shelby County. And there's no, in terms of the application, you don't get any additional benefit from having more than 5 partners in the application. So 5 partners seem like the logical number to stop with.
So we would basically stop it at the county line, probably going north? Is that what you're thinking?
This plan would focus on Miami County, but
Right.
it would certainly recognize the potential for it to extend beyond the county lines and what it would connect to in those areas.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, do you know if Sydney and Shelby County are working to make a trail system like Miami County has?
We convened a meeting with representatives from the city of Sydney, Shelby County Parks District, Miami Conservancy District, Johnston Farm, the Village of Lockington, and the Miami and Erie Canal Association. We met with them about a month and a half ago to see what kind of interest was there, and there was a very strong interest from the city of Sydney. They already have a portion of a trail that's constructed from their community to the south down that what they refer to as the old feeder canal that heads towards Lockington. And in Lockington, the mayor was a part of the discussion. He says he informed us that the village council is very supportive and interested in becoming a part of the trail system if there's a way that we can make that happen. And in fact, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and ODOT just spent some $2 million reconstructing the locks in Lockington. So that represents a significant attraction or amenity along the trail system, should we be able to connect it that way.
Okay.
This is really a great opportunity.
Well, we hope you're successful, Chris, with the grant. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this resolution? Do we have?
I move we adopt resolution R-104-14.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R-104-14. The clerk call the roll.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Fest,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Resolution number R-104-14 has been adopted. Resolution number R-105-14.
A resolution authorizing the power system to proceed with expenditures incidental to the acquisition and elimination of the DP&L substation on South Main Street.
Mr. Smeezy is going to handle this one, too.
This item also relates to the downtown riverfront redevelopment discussion, hence my involvement in speaking to this. But Nick Berger is also here from the power system to cover my comments in case I misstate something about the power aspect. But the focus of this, or the reason for our bringing this to you, is there's an existing DP&L substation on South Main Street that's in the heart of the area that we've targeted for this redevelopment effort. It lies just south of the recreational trail, the east-west trail that runs on the former railroad bed.
And it's very unsightly.
It is very unsightly. It's a blighting influence on the district for sure. And DP&L had just a handful of customers remaining on that substation. Ed Krager has been successful in communicating with them and gotten them to remove those customers from their service, so they're no longer in need of this substation being there to serve those customers. It does, however, continue to support some of their infrastructure that's on the east side of town. So the terms of what we negotiated is that they will vacate that substation and hand that property over to the city if we'll assist them with building the facilities that they need to build to be able to eliminate this substation altogether. So that involves their having to build a piece of infrastructure on Piqua-Troy Road that will then serve the needs of that loop that they have on the east side of town. And once that's complete, then they would be able to completely abandon the substation on South Main Street. They would turn the property over to the city. Our power system would demolish the structure, and then we would own the property. The total cost is potentially up to $60,000 for the infrastructure and improvements, and then that would, in essence, purchase us the property.
Chris, what would the time frame be with that?
From what I understand from Ed is that it could very well maybe be done by the end of the year, depending on how quickly DP&L can move with building their infrastructure.
Good. And just for reference to the people, describe the location of that facility.
So this is on South Main Street on the west side of the street between the bike path and Wood Street, about mid-block, just south of what I would describe as the white warehouse building that sits along the former railroad alignment.
No, do we own that white building now? So we could potentially clear out that whole
That's the
area there.
intent, is to begin to clear that out for redevelopment, yes.
Well, that old black infrastructure there is really not attractive when you're coming down Main Street. Piqua, it would be really good to get that out of there.
Absolutely.
Will this also secure the easement that's down behind that property and goes clear over to Wayne Street?
The easement is a separate item that we would bring back to the City Commission to vacate the easement once we're to that point in the process. It's on a separate parcel of land that's under separate ownership, so it's not under DP&L's purview as part of this parcel of land that we're talking about today. Once we complete the environmental due diligence, queue up all the acquisitions and those sorts of things, then we would address the easement vacation.
Okay.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this resolution?
I'll move to adopt resolution number R-105-14.
Second?
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R-105-14. Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Fess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number R-105-14 has been adopted. Resolution number R-106-14.
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement.
Mr. Smeezing.
Thank you. This item, if authorized, would allow us to enter into a contract with MKSK, consulting firm who does planning work for communities. We've actually worked with them before when they were under a prior name. They did the alignment study for us on the Great Miami River Recreational Trail, and we extended it south to Peterson Road. MKSK in this project would be looking at the historic East Piqua area, which is what we've dubbed that area east of the downtown, surrounded by the river on the other three sides. And as you'll recall, there was a preliminary planning study that was done there a couple years ago as the result of some funds we received from the ATSDR, a CDC organization that granted us the dollars to be able to do the preliminary study. Through that exercise, we were able to engage some experts from around the nation to do a planning charrette that gave us then some insights or some suggestions on what some of the opportunities in that district could be in terms of trying to revitalize the neighborhood and enhance the gateway coming into the community. Subsequently, the ATSDR folks gave us a second grant to basically move forward with what the recommendations were in the first study. So that's what we would be doing with this round of planning. The folks at MKSK and another firm gave us a proposal. Of the two, we determined that the course of action that MKSK had in mind in terms of the way they would execute the planning process and the partners that they were bringing to the table was the superior of the two proposals. So we negotiated with them in terms of what the scope of services should look like and what the dollar amount would be. This would expend $115,000, or $115,000, all of which is covered by the grant, and none of it is a local match. There's no local dollars involved here. This complements the riverfront redevelopment strategy in terms of the two neighborhoods sit adjacent to each other and also are both contiguous to the downtown. So what we have happen here, we would certainly want to have complement the riverfront efforts. That's a point to be made in terms of one of the partner agencies that MKSK plans to bring on board is City Visions, who we've been working with on the riverfront. So the two projects will move together seamlessly. MKSK will look at the housing in that area and determine ways for us to be able to incentivize reinvestment in the neighborhood, and also look at the existing assets such as Wirt Stadium and some of the brownfield sites, if you will, to see what we could do with those areas to leverage what's there and be able to make some improvements that would have a significant impact on the community. This stems from originally the comprehensive plan that we completed in 2007, and then after that the redevelopment document that was completed in 2009, the Redo Piqua document, identified this one of the top 5 areas that we should look at in terms of redevelopment. So if you would all see fit to authorize this evening, we would proceed with executing a contract with MKSK to complete this process. We expect the planning process would take about 9 months.
And I think, if I may say so, this is a great opportunity for us to look at revitalizing that section of the city, and also hopefully bring redevelopment there that would be very, very beneficial. That's very important to our overall economic strategy, is to help in redeveloping and helping new businesses locate or expand the opportunities for businesses to either build new facilities or expand their facilities. So along with a lot of opportunities for recreation activities and opportunities in that area. So it has a multiple use of good fortune that's probably going to come to that area as a result of this.
Gary, I haven't heard anything for quite a while on the Decker building and the Board of Education. Have they made a decision as to?
I think the latest information that I received was that they will not be making a decision for the next 3 years.
Okay, because that will play into this area as well.
Exactly.
So, okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this resolution? Now, do I have a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution R-106-14.
Second?
It's moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-106-14. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Fess.
Aye. Resolution number R-106-14 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Resolution number R-107-14.
A resolution authorizing preliminary legislation with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the replacement of the traffic signals on U.S. Route 36 at Looney Road, Scott Drive, Center Court, and the 2 I-75 entrance exit ramps.
Director of Engineering Amy Havener will provide the staff report.
Thank you. Back in 2013, I brought before City Commission consent legislation for this project. At that time, it was for ODOT to replace their 2 traffic signals at US 36 and I-75. Since that time, ODOT has contacted us wanting to know if we would be interested in also replacing our signals at Scott Drive and at Looney Road on 36. They'd offered to do the entire design at their expense while they were doing their signals. And after talking to our traffic department, those signals are quite old and in need of repair and replacement. So this was an ideal time to go ahead and do that with the design being provided for us. So this legislation needs to be adopted new tonight to include those signals as well. They'll all be bid at the same time. The city will be responsible for the signals at Scott Drive and at Looney Road, 100%. And then we're also looking to do some upgrades to the signals at the 75-36 interchange to make them the decorative mast arms like we have downtown. So we'd be responsible for those upgrades as well for that cost.
And I think that as a result of the improvements that we made at the interchange recently with new standards, light poles and so forth, in meetings with ODOT, they were impressed and they felt they wanted to replace the existing cables and lines that go through there with new poles that actually help and enhance that area and match up. So this is a great opportunity for us to continue with enhancement in that entire interchange out there.
Thank you, Amy, Gary. Commissioners, you have any questions on this resolution? Anyone in the audience? If not, do I have a motion, please?
I move we adopt resolution R-107-14.
A second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-107-14. Would you please call the roll?
Mayor Fess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt.
Aye.
Resolution number R-107-14 has been adopted. Resolution number R-108-14.
A resolution authorizing participation in the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Director of Public Works Doug Harder will provide the staff report.
Thank you. Each year, ODOT goes out for bid for machinery, services, supplies, and things of that sort. And then they open it up through their cooperative purchasing program for other political subdivisions to take advantage of that pricing. So what we're asking for, we'd like to take advantage of their crack seal pricing that they receive. So in order to do so, we need this resolution from our legislative body that says we want to participate and we will follow the terms and conditions of their contract.
Is there any chance we can get some salt out of the deal?
I wish.
The latest information is they are looking to try to see if that's a possibility of obtaining salt for municipalities. There's no guarantee that that's going to be available. The latest on the salt is, and it is a critical thing because if you had salt in stock, if they count the amount you had in stock, and they're only letting municipalities in Ohio have up to about 70%. We're getting about 1,700 ton because that puts us up to about 72% of our normal purchase of about 3,000 ton. Cities like Tip City, because they had about 70% stocked, are getting zero. So it is a critical issue that we're going to have further discussion on because of the limited salt this year for everyone, we're going to have to be careful on how we handle winter weather and snow. We've been gearing up to do a lot more brining, both before pre-treatment and now probably treatment as the storm occurs. But this is something that is a big issue, but we are continuing to pursue other avenues of trying to find salt, but it is just going to be a difficult thing to do this year.
There's probably going to be a lot less salting going on in the residential areas off in the main thoroughfares, do you suppose?
We're having discussions, and we're going to be working on that and bringing forward in a work session to the commission our strategies as to how we think that should work this year. So.
Clarify for me why we have this crisis as far as salt. Was it the bad winter last year? Used too much salt? Are the salt companies trying to hold up?
Well, the story from salt companies is they had to produce so much last year, and there was lots of times where many municipalities didn't get the salt they were even had in contract, that they are way behind on being able to produce it. So that's the story that we're getting from salt companies that supply that to this part of the nation.
Interesting. I know there's a big controversy. I think Troy had a big article maybe in the Dayton paper about their plan for this winter. Sounds pretty much like what you're talking about.
I think everyone's having to relook as how they administer their salt program.
Well, we'll be slipping and sliding a little bit this winter, folks. Sounds like. Let's hope old man winter doesn't bring as much snow as he did last year.
That's the hope.
So, is there anyone that has any other questions? Anyone in the audience? If not, could I have a motion, please?
I'll move to adopt resolution number R-108-14.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R-108-14. Becky, please call the roll.
Commissioner Vogt?
Aye.
Mayor Fess?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Terry?
Aye.
Commissioner Martin?
Aye.
Resolution number R-108-14 has been adopted. Resolution R-109-14.
A resolution authorizing a purchase order to Asphalt Systems Incorporated for the purchase of crack sealing services for the street department.
Mr. Harder.
This resolution is authorizing a purchase order to Asphalt Systems Incorporated, which is part of the ODOT Cooperative Purchasing Program for crack sealing services.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Harder? Anyone in the audience have any questions or thoughts?
So ODOT has already dealt with these different companies and put out their own contracts for that, and so those that will keep us from having to put contracts out and bid,
Correct. That's right.
so we can use the bid which ODOT has already gotten negotiated for us.
That's correct.
Generally, what happens is we are authorized to use state contracts, being a local government, and those contracts have already been bid, and the state has awarded those contracts for various services and supplies, and we're able to use that, which means we don't have to rebid those items. Yes.
Anything else?
But then you still check with their prices against something
I
else.
actually had another company come in, the same exact streets, had them give me a quote, and it's about $143,000 savings going through this cooperative purchasing program.
That's for this particular crack sealing.
Correct. And what we're doing, we're going back the last 5 years of the resurfacing program and crack sealing those streets to preserve them from any further breakdown or failure. So there's quite a few streets in this.
Okay.
Has your paving program gotten into full swing yet, Doug?
Yes, and we still got more to come that we're working on, waiting on a couple bids to come in, and I know, I won't speak for Amy, but I know the resurfacing is about ready to start here for the last part. So, you know, we've accomplished quite a bit this year, and we look to do quite a bit again next year.
So you're pretty much on target with what your plan was?
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing two different things. Doug has got projects that he sometimes does internally or contracting. Amy has projects for the resurfacing, and Amy, you want to update them on where that is right now?
Sure. The contractor for our 2014 street resurfacing is tentatively scheduled to come in next Monday to begin milling the High Street area, basically all the streets in this year's paving program. We had to wait until Vectren was through with all of their underground piping in order for us to put the handicap ramps in. And then we had to wait for that to be done to let the paving. So there is a process to all this. It will get done. They wanted to come in a couple weeks ago and start milling, but they were not able to follow up with the paving for a couple weeks, and we did not want to leave that milled. So we're anticipating starting next Monday. Now they are using a mill that everyone else in the state of Ohio is trying to get their hands on as well. So right now that's what we're being told, but we'll definitely have it in. They think 2 to 3 weeks is what it should take. So
we should see a lot of movement here in the near future. Thank you.
And
We better see a lot of movement.
That'll be able to be repaved before the snow flies.
Yeah,
I mean,
correct. Once
it
they
won't lay
start,
just milled over the
no,
winter.
once they start, they said about 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll be milled, paved, and striped. So it'll be ready to go.
And that includes about 22 streets, I believe.
That's going to make a huge difference. That's great. Any other questions or thoughts? If not,
Move to adopt resolution R-109-14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number R-109-14. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Fess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Resolution number R-109-14 has been adopted. And lastly, we have resolution number R-110-14.
A resolution of authorization to submit an application for Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and local transportation improvement programs, and to execute contracts as required for the North Main Streetscape project. Excuse
Ms.
me.
Havener.
This resolution would allow the city manager to make application for the North Main Street Streetscape project. We submitted a preliminary application a year ago, and we were told that this looks favorable for funding. So part of the final process is that we need to submit a final application, and we need this legislation to back that application. This would be for the streetscape of North Main Street between North and Green Street. So we're kind of moving north toward the bridge step by step. Have the same similar features that you have downtown currently with the brick pavers and some of the decorative light poles and benches and so forth.
I've had a couple people mention to me that they would like to see American flags on the the Main Street Bridge, you know, the way they are in Ash Street coming in. Are there flag holders or whatever you need on those poles?
There is, and we are in the process of ordering new flags. The ones in the downtown are worn out, so we'll make sure that everything's
Great,
taken care of.
that's great. Well, I know Glenn Devers, for one, will be very happy. He mentions that to me every time I see him. So, Glenn, hang on, it's coming. Is there any other?
Is this money for the plan of the streetscape, or is that already in place to pretty much mirror what's already there?
The design is ongoing.
Okay.
And so this would be for construction.
So it's all construction?
Yes, this would be for construction, and we do have some money from the federal highway through MVRPC that we've secured for this as well. So this would help go toward our matching portion of that project.
Great.
Would we
Thanks,
have to
Amy.
use the bricks instead of the stamped concrete, or would that look funny?
We don't, but we're trying to keep consistent because it is, all this would happen on Main Street, so we want to be consistent with what we have the rest of Main Street.
Okay.
How much maintenance are we finding that we're having with that brick?
I think the main brick concerns are sometimes on the roads. For instance, at the bridge crossing Water, or Main Street, I'm sorry. There's some issues there, so we are going to be replacing that with stamped concrete. I think where you have those crossings like that, we want to go to stamped concrete rather than brick. On the sidewalks where there's not really that kind of traffic, then the brick works pretty good. So, but that's where we're headed with changing some of those out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it won't be a large, a necessary problem for the maintenance.
No, once the concrete is just, it looks like brick, it's imprinted, but it holds up much better than just brick. It doesn't pop up.
Okay.
Anything else, commissioners? Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this resolution? Could I have a motion, please?
Move to adopt resolution R-110-14.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution R-110-14. Would the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Terry,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Vogt,
Aye.
Mayor Bess,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number R-110-14 has been adopted. That brings us to the end of our agenda portion with the resolutions. Our monthly reports are in for August of 2014 and have been accepted. At this point, we'll go to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment, please come forward, state your name and address, and make your comments.
My name's Tom Jenkins. I live at 1828 Britain. I want to thank the city manager for notifying us through the paper that they're going to take down the traffic light at High and College. But I'd like to clarify a few things. First thing is there's a lot of commerce goes on at that intersection. And it's lined where there's a left turn lane plus a through lane. So my question is, if you put up a four-way stop sign there, that will constitute a change in the traffic, right? Does that require a resolution by the city commission?
Yes, and actually that item that came from a study, that was the intersection improvement study, and further traffic engineering modeling for that intersection to try to move traffic as best as possible through there. A lot of times there's no traffic there and you have some long delays sitting there with no traffic. This according to the modeling, moves it better. This will go before the Planning Commission on October the 14th, and they'll review it. Then it'll be forwarded to the City Commission, and it requires 3 readings to change the ordinance to change the traffic light, to move the traffic light out.
Okay, then my next question is, there are 3 intersections north of that, Ash, Green, and North. Are you figuring on taking those traffic lights out?
I can't remember whether those are in the study. Chris, do you remember if those are in the study to remove?
Those two were part of the intersection improvement study, and the recommendation was that the signals be removed. in favor of a two-way stop with some other enhancements to deal with pedestrian crossings. Those were included in the Safe Routes to School infrastructure improvement project, and I believe the construction for those is slated in 2015. So we're bound to the Safe Routes to School funding timeline so far as when we complete those other three.
But that also require a resolution that got to go through the commission?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Then that brings me to my next question is, the traffic changes on South Main Street were not brought up here for a resolution. We got new bike paths.
Yes.
On both sides. 30 years ago, we were asked or told that we needed a 4-lane highway between Piqua and Troy. At that time, the city limits stopped at Hem Road. Now the city limit stops south of there, but we got a bike path down there, but I didn't see any resolution that was passed by this commission to line that like that, and I want to know how come it got done without a resolution up here and nobody knew about it.
It's an operational matter that when we look at
Who's we?
paving, I'll take full responsibility, so it's my decision to make those changes. That configuration that's there is a much safer configuration than what was already there with 4 lanes.
Safe
for
who?
Safer for traffic, safer for bicyclists who travel that road to go to those businesses. And that's one of the things we heard from businesses on South Main was that, you know, they're having some dangerous situations there. The center turn line is much safer situation for those businesses. They requested, because they were having some safety issues trying to get out on crossing 2 lanes out onto a 4-lane road. There's only 6,200 cars per day on that road. Back originally when they did 4 lanes, they may have projected much higher traffic volumes. I don't know, it was been a long time ago. But we have to take a look at what's current and what's the current use. Over a period of time, traffic patterns change in neighborhoods and throughout a community. So we have to evaluate the intersections and our roadways to see what is the safest and best way to move people through the city. So that decision was not a decision that required commission approval, but it was my decision based on operational function of that roadway.
Well, I think it was very poor planning because the citizens were not notified. Had it been put in the paper that was going to be done, I think there'd be a lot more people up here complaining about it. I mean, we were told in the paper that the paving was going to take place from the North Main Street Bridge to the South Corporation limit, and it sure looks good. But it was all done at night when we was all asleep.
Well, the paving
and when we got up in the morning, we had a bike path.
The paving was done to eliminate some of the problems with traffic during the daytime so that you didn't have the congestion and so forth, and it's a much safer situation.
I agree with that 100%. But I disagree with them bike paths down there 100%.
Well, I appreciate your concern. I have to make a decision as what is the best for the city and the safest situation for the city, and I stand fully behind the decision. And I think that in a few months, I think that will be seen differently as those bike paths connect to other places throughout the city, and it makes it much safer to be able to travel throughout the city.
Oh, that's my next question. How many more streets are going to be lined with bike paths?
There will be additional streets.
Is Commerce Drive going to be one of them? Is Davis Parkway going to be one of them?
Well, we'll be happy to put out a map that shows in the future.
That would be 100%.
I believe that we have communicated throughout various media about some of the changes. Now, if you didn't see it, I apologize. But
well, I subscribe to the paper.
Okay. Well, I don't always know which media it's going to be in, but we use a lot of different media to get the word out. But I apologize if you didn't know anything about it. So we're certainly not trying to hide anything. We're actually trying to communicate and tell people of these changes that are coming. It's extremely important that we make some of these changes for the community, because if we don't,
well, I understand that
the community will die. And we want to attract young professionals. We want to attract professionals to come here and live and work. We have lots of jobs that we need to fill within the city. We want to be an attraction. We want to attract visitors. All these things we have to do if we're going to prosper as a community. And that's the one thing that I have a lot of experience in, is working with other communities to that's happened. So these
I
are the things that
understand
need to
that.
make change. So.
And I appreciate that fact. You know, we spent millions of dollars on a bike path, but we also ran another city manager out of town for building it.
And I would say that's one of your greatest assets that you have now.
I agree. That's why I disagree with the one on South Main Street.
Excuse me, if I could just interject.
Sure.
Gary, I think we had some site selectors in here last week, and Mr. Jenkins, that was one of the things they commented on. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
We had tours of site selectors to come in to locate new businesses within communities. They toured Piqua, they toured other cities around the area. The thing they cited us for as having the biggest plus was the fact that we were looking forward enough to put things like bike lanes in our streets, to be able to do riverfront development and those type things that are progressive enough to attract business and make it a place where people want to come to live and businesses to be here. So everything that's being done is for the sole purpose of helping this community. Now, I know there will be things that I will do that will be questioned, and I understand that, and I can appreciate that, and I don't mind that. But I ask sometimes that you give it 6 months before you throw me out, before you make the 6 months. Before you do that.
But I may be back 6 months.
And that's
Thank
perfectly
you.
fine.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Bradley Beringer, Mound Street. Mr. Jenkins kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but I agree with some comments that Commissioner Terry made. This is an accident waiting to happen. Without proper notification that the traffic pattern was going to change, when I first went on that section of South Main Street, I normally get over in the right-hand lane to go down to 75 to get to school. Well, imagine my surprise one day when there's no more 2 lanes. There's a bike lane. I don't think this was very well thought out. If we wanted to do it and do it safely, we should have extended the sidewalks down through that part of town. Sidewalks are just as bike-friendly as bike lanes are. And if you've read, there was a comment on the Piqua, Ohio page on Facebook that there's already been an incident where a truck has tried to pass a car in the center turn lane. Now, I just don't think that this was very well thought out. It should have been, like Mr. Jenkins said, it should have been publicized more than it was. And if it was, I probably missed it. But I would like to encourage this commission in 6 months to do a study on the use of those bike lanes to see if they are being used, to see where we go from there.
Bradley, in the past few weeks, I've spent a lot of time and many trips to Columbus. You would be amazed at the bike lanes that they have on their highways over there. That town is very progressive, and the amount of young people and young adults who are in those lanes on bicycles is also amazing. And I think that one of the things that I want us to stop and think about, we have said for years, Piqua is dying. Piqua is not
But
growing.
I don't think bike lanes make a community grow.
Well, I think that's where I need to disagree with you, only saying that the gentleman here that we hired to come into Piqua, to bring Piqua, has been in Blacksburg, Virginia, he's been in Fishers, Indiana, he's been in other communities where he's made these things happen. So we have to, I will put his judgment and his education and his experience above yours for that reason only.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying let's
No,
come
you
back
just
and
said
I know,
we shouldn't.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm saying let's come back in 6 months.
It certainly isn't. It isn't certainly because there hasn't been any studies done. Chris has worked on studies. Amy's worked on studies. We've had consultants come in and work on studies. And I just really feel bad to sit here and have our city manager be attacked for something that he has done in other places that have brought people in, that have brought industries in. And I think that you better give him a chance before before you attack him on these things. So you have to pay attention when you're driving. I mean, I drove down, I heard this, and I drove down there and I thought, what's the big deal? I mean, you got the bike lanes, yeah, but you still have the lane. You have the turn lane, as Gary said. I found it to be much easier to get out of those businesses down there with those turn lanes. So I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath. As Mr. Huff has said, give us 6 months, give us a year. Let us see what these things do. We can always restripe those highways if there's issues. But let's not get all excited about it before we even test it.
I will say, I just got back a couple weeks ago from an international conference dealing with, and part of one of the huge sessions I went to was in regard to what makes cities prosper. What are cities doing? Bike lanes are one of those things that actually attract millennials and young professionals to come to your community. Along with, I was a little surprised, but one of the main things that attract them are dog parks.
Yeah.
So we have to. So those are the type of things that we have to begin to do and make change in our community, or we don't prosper. And that's the whole purpose in what we're trying to do with the changes that are happening and things, the riverfront development and all the things that we're trying to do is to help this community. So that's the sole purpose in doing this. I have no other reason. I don't even own a bike, so it wasn't to build a bike lane for myself. But I know how important they are to a community and what they do and the type of individuals and professionals that they attract. So.
Well, I'm willing to give it 6 months. I'm willing to give it the 6 months.
Well,
okay, and if that's what you're asking, I'm more than willing to give it the 6 months.
Well, we're not particularly asking for, I mean, I'm not for 6 months. I want to see this community grow. I'm tired of hearing people say Piqua's dying. When we looked for a city manager, we looked for someone who had vision, who had experience and had been successful in bringing communities to life and growing them. And that's what we have. And we have to give him a chance. And we should not say, well, you got 6 months or you're out. You know.
Oh, I'm not advocating that at all. I'm not advocating that at all. 100% no. I'm just saying let's come back in 6 months, do a study on the bike path, on the bike lanes.
You may be astounded if the studies that they have on the bike paths right now and the thousands of people that are on there blew me away when I heard that. I'm only saying, don't get fanatic about things that you really don't have experience with.
Well,
like I
said on the
really
Facebook page, I drive that every day.
And I drive it quite often too, have my whole life.
And it was just a shock to see it go from 2 lanes or 4 lanes to 2 lanes.
It's new, isn't it?
Without really any hint that it was coming.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I won't shock you in the future either.
Well, that's okay. Hey, Gary, I think you've done a great job the last 3 years. I'm not going to advocate throwing you out in 6 months. I'm not going to do that.
Well, you know what? When you look around and you see something new, then you know that something's happening in Piqua.
I think as the trails start to connect through the city, I think you're going to see some real things happening with it.
I look forward to that, but I just want to...
And please don't get me wrong, you and Mr. Jenkins both, I appreciate your comments and your thoughts, and I understand where you're coming from, but we've got to do something to push this community forward, to get industry in here, to get people to come in. With this riverfront development, if we can get that going, it's going to change the whole face of this community. And so let's give this plan a chance. Let's not put 6 months on it or 4 months or a year. Let's give it a plan to try to get it all together. Let's look back in 10 years and see how much change has happened.
I think we can do that.
Okay.
I think we can do that.
Thanks, Brad.
Mike Sloan on Delaware Drive, Circle. Actually, I want to applaud you for that, Gary. I have a neighbor that works out in that area. She's commented how much easier it is to get on that highway. The other comment I'd like to make is that the synergy you get every time you add another bike lane on those roads, you're going to get more people riding bikes. And we're all health conscious, I don't look it, but I am. And I think that, you know, it's gonna get synergy. 6 months in the wintertime to learn about a bike lane is not the time to learn about a bike lane. I don't think there'll be a lot of people. Anyway, I applaud you. I think it's a great.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, while Mr. Sloan's at the lectern, I would like to recognize him as a member of the Downtown Design Review Board. I was remiss earlier in not recognizing that he was in the audience, so my apologies. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Sloan. Thanks, Chris. And here's Mr. Bicycle, Piqua, Ohio.
If it has to do with bicycles, Jim's going to be here.
That's right.
Jim Hemmer, Boone Street, Piqua. A short while back, we changed the auto traffic pattern at the foot of Covington Avenue Hill, and I think it has been accepted and working fairly well. The bike lane, 25 years ago, I was on a bike lane on Route 703 that connects St. Mary's and Salina. So a bike lane along a highway has been there for over 25 years. When my son lived in Indiana on Lafayette Road, Lafayette Drive, there's a bike lane, and that's a fairly busy place, but it seems to work. One of the things about the new design, people have an opportunity to go to the trailer park, to the industry down there, to and fro. As far as my wife was recently in the hospital, and for 10 days I drove back and forth, and I don't think I slowed down but from 50 to 45 at the max. So I don't think there's a slowdown in traffic. If you are in the, I'm going to call it the speed lane, you can call it the center lane. If you're flying in that center lane and all of a sudden somebody wants to turn left, I think there's a safety feature in having the turn lane versus 2 lanes and somebody trying to turn left out of the speed lane. I'll get off of it. I think I've been on it. I've ridden my bike on it. I feel very comfortable until I get to the end, and then I have to ride from there to Peterson Road. But just for my own sake, I wanted to know how well this bike lane will work compared to the other bike lanes. And I was very comfortable. I might be half nuts, but I was comfortable. A lot of things are happening with bicycles right now. The recent Bob Shook Bridge was open last Friday. That now connects Piqua all the way to Cincinnati. My goal next summer is to ride from my driveway to my son's driveway, which I anticipate is about 110 miles. And that the majority, almost all of it, will be on the bike path. The connection between Piqua and Troy with that bridge is fantastic. People will come from Troy to Piqua, people from Piqua will go to Troy. It's a very scenic run. 2 weeks ago, we had the Moonlight Stride and Ride, and we had 80 participants. And we started at Lock 9, went down to the old power plant, turned around and came back. We had 281 luminaries lighting up the path. It was very pretty. And I made the announcement before we started that the observation deck down behind the old power plant was now open. And I said, this is not a time to ride, it's not a time to walk, go look at it. It took a lot longer to get that project or that event over with because people went down, stopped at that observation deck, and took quite a while. What should have been finished by 8:30, it was almost 9:30 before the last 2 people from Covington. By the way, Covington came over to see how this is run and how they can have a similar event. So they were very interested in how it worked, how the bike path and luminaries and the observation deck down there worked. This Saturday is the Main Street Groovy Gourd Ride. And so far, we have registrants from Piqua, Troy, Tip, Dayton, Kettering, Salina, Brookville, Fort Wayne, Versailles, New Paris, Russia. These people are coming to Piqua, and all the riders will either leave, well, they all will. They will all leave and re-enter Piqua on our bike paths. So we are bringing people from all over to see what we have over here. So we are a leader in this bike path thing. And again, the bike lane, I am very comfortable riding it. And I see a safety feature myself in having a left turn lane rather than a speed lane and somebody wanting to turn left out of it.
Thank you, Jim.
So,
We just got a new designation as a part of a trail. Chris?
That's the Trail Town designation through the Buckeye Trail and North Country Trail Association, with recognition of the efforts we're putting forth in recognizing the trail as an amenity in our community.
I'll be announcing it just.
Oh, you're going to talk about that? Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to jump on your parade. Okay, thank you. Russ, I wonder what he's going to talk about.
Bikes. I'll talk about bikes.
These go vroom, vroom, though.
Russ Fashion 801 Forest Avenue. Let's change the bike order around here a little bit. Let's put engines on them. Downtown Piqua had a little traffic pattern change the 19th and 20th. I'm up here this evening. The Piqua Bike Fest, Inc. is the committee. There's 9 of us voting members and 3 non-voting. I want to thank the city of Piqua, the city staff, the commission, your work sessions, the help from city staff in putting the electric in, the water in. Myself personally, I'd like to thank the police chief, worked tightly with him, and the law director, Stacy Wall, was probably my most 2 contacts that really helped get things going. Gary did his part, keeping his staff on top of what needed done and making sure I covered the bases. On my end of the committee, I was the city connection. Just the hurdles, there were hurdles to get over, we got over. I had to sit down with Amy and go over the road closures when A&A Safety had all their signs out all over the state and couldn't help us and had to round up signs from the state and the county and the city to do the road closure. I'd like to thank the downtown merchants for their participation, and some of them benefited, some of them had more foot traffic to see what was downtown Piqua. Barrett Paving, I'd like to thank them for getting the street done. As Amy was talking, all the grinding and all, and the city had some say-so in getting that done, that we didn't have a street down there. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Piqua that came out to participate. I saw people downtown that I wouldn't have expected to see downtown that shook my hand, said, thanks for putting this on, nice job. I talked to people from Springfield that had never been to Piqua, thought Piqua was just neat. I know I talked to some people from Fort Wayne, same thing. There are some t-shirts left that's down at the Hallmark store, but we ordered 1,200 t-shirts, or 1,250, and I think there's only 80 or 90 down there at Hallmark, so there was a lot of people. I'd like to thank the people. In fact, there's some of them in front of me that tried to win a motorcycle, and sorry you didn't win. Someone from Covington did, and you couldn't have rode it on the bike path, Gary. But other than that, I don't know for sure where we're at on the dollar figures or the attendance or anything like that, but is there any questions, concerns from any of the commissioners while I'm at the podium?
I think we would, from our impression, I had some tremendous weather.
I was in charge of that.
Yeah,
You weren't here at the meeting when I made that comment.
I thought you'd take credit for that. Good crowds. We had very little issues at all.
And I agree with that.
And I think that talking with the police chief, it wasn't from the Bike Fest. It was just local here that we generally have
typical weekend.
Things. But everybody was well behaved, and so things went really well. I literally have not had one complaint from citizens about it, and so I think that you all to be commended for the effort that was put in and how it turned out and so forth. I know there's things that we, if you decide to go forward with it again, we both learned a lot.
Oh, I think we all learned a lot.
Ways to work with some of those things out, and we're happy to do that.
So. And I think there's a lot that we learned for even other events coming up. But other than that, again, I thank the city staff and their time, and the 2 individuals here I named specifically that helped me a lot, and time out of their day and what they had to do. And
you're an insurance expert now, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'll stick to pounding nails. Thank you.
Well, Russ, I just wanted to say, too, if I was missing down there, it certainly because my heart was there. I really wanted to be there, but because of illness, I wasn't able to be there. But I have heard nothing but glowing comments about the entire event, and people saying that they hope that it will occur again next year. I think it was a
What everybody keeps saying.
it was a
but,
great segue from the Heritage Festival to your Bike Fest. You know, you kind of filled the need there in the fall that we really would have missed. And so thanks to you and your committee and all of those who worked so hard to make that happen. And next year I will be there.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Just a little. Thank you.
That's right.
Mike Gutman, Marymount Drive, and I know the hour's late, so I'll try to make my points brief and direct.
You have all the time you need,
That's
Mike.
all right. I'll add my congratulations to the Bike Fest committee. I think I took a lot of faith and vision, and I think you pulled it off, and congratulations. In keeping with the cycling theme, the Miami Valley Cycling Summit, as you know, is coming to Piqua in May 28th and 29th of 2015. And the Cycling Summit is you're going to hear more about it, but basically it's a convocation where you're getting city leaders, city planners, bicycling enthusiasts, cycling shops, and related outdoor activity people to convene at one place and to talk about what bicycling does and outdoor activities do for the health of a community, economically, health and wellness, to grow tourism and business. And this will be the 5th one, possibly. It started in Dayton. It moved to a couple different places. It was in Springfield 2 years ago, and the Piqua sent a contingent of people led by Chris Schmeising. And I think Chris had it in his mind that if it was that we could do that in Piqua. So he was brave enough to volunteer us to do that. And so Elizabeth and I are co-chairing the event, actually, and we have a good host committee of at least 12 to 15 people and a region-wide committee of about 25 to 30. So it's going to be a pretty neat event, and I think there will be more coming out that you'll hear about it. The other thing I would like to address and the issue with the change in the lanes on South 25A. Anytime you have change, you're going to have questions and concerns. Maybe how's it going to work out? And obviously, some people it may have been better if they had more notice and say it's coming, watch for it. But it's here, and I noticed in coming back that way, I see people slow down, they merge appropriately, and they get in, they find the lane, and it's fine. It actually regulates traffic coming into Piqua better. Going the other way, I think it's going to take time for people to just merge and follow the traffic. I did take the opportunity to ride from our home on Park Avenue down our bikeways to the South Bikeway to the bridge, and then coming back, we actually went on Peterson Road for about a half a mile. You get to the bike lane, and it was very nice. I mean, the bike lane's very wide. It's nice. It's a clean path. It's very safe. And I didn't have any problem with cars going by at all. And I think the more cars that see people using the bike lanes, the better it's going to be. So I think, hopefully people will use it, the people that live out there and work out there. And the other thing I guess I would say is that there's a tendency by some to say that all the bikes should be on bikeways, but that's not realistic. I mean, people bike to work, they bike for recreation. I've ridden on roads for 30 years, and you have to do it smart. You have to be smart when you do that, of course, because you're running a risk when you're traveling with cars and traffic. So seeing a bike lane like that is going to attract people that ride on the roadways to come into Piqua and to use not only the city streets but the bikeways as well. So I commend the city for looking forward on the work, and we'll look forward to see how it goes.
Well, I'm sure that the biking event that you have coming in, there were quite a number of people at that one.
Yeah, we're hoping about 350 to 400 people.
When we were there that last time. But I know it'll be successful with you and Elizabeth at the head, because I know.
Hear more about it.
Good. Thank you, Mike. At this point, is there anyone else? No. We'll go to the city manager's report,
Thank you very
can
much.
talk about the new designation that
We'll talk about a
I
number
already
of
did
things.
that.
A lot of good things that I want to mention tonight, and we had a lot of good items on the agenda tonight that are going to help us quite a bit. The power plant riverfront reclamation project is now complete, and we're planning to have an official reopening ceremony. Right now, it's tentatively scheduled for October the 16th, but we'll have more details to follow We're finalizing some of that, but it is as has mentioned, a tremendous section of the trail and riverfront that opens up opportunities for just enjoying river recreation, fishing, and all types of things. So the overlook is very well done. So I want to commend all our staff that worked on the project from getting that grant. I think it was about a $1.4 million grant that we worked with Miami County on, and was headed up by the power system, and they did a fantastic job of working with the contractor on getting that. So we want to highlight that because that's, in my opinion, that's how a lot of our riverfront should end up looking in the future. The Trail Town designation ceremony will take place on October the 23rd at noon at French Park. And for people that don't know it, the Piqua Trail System is also part of the Buckeye and North Country Trails, and that designation comes from those organizations. I believe, Chris, are we the first to get that fourth
in Ohio.
Fourth in Ohio to receive that designation? Again, that's marketing the community, attracting people who do hiking and other types of activities to come to our community. So all this is part of the strategy to attract people and get Piqua's name out there. Positively Promoting Piqua is sponsoring an educational forum on the public safety income tax levy on October the 15th, and that will take place from 7 to 8 p.m. at Fort Piqua Plaza. So that will be available, and there'll be a number of us staff and citizens group to talk about the upcoming levy. Habitat for Humanity of Miami County will have a house dedication and blessing on October the 12th at 1:30 p.m. and this is for the house that was built at 638 Boone Street here in Piqua. So that's another new house, and helpful to a family to get them into a new place. The fire department and the police department will be hosting an open house on October the 11th from noon to 4 p.m. And this is during national, it also happens to be National Fire Prevention Week, and the departments will be highlighting equipment and have those on display, services provided to the community, and even giving away such things as smoke detectors and a bicycle for a boy and a girl. So a lot of good things happening there. The Ohio's Great Corridor Association will be here in Piqua on October the 9th, that's Thursday, to tour our riverfront development and the plans, and look at the plans that we have for the riverfront, and that tour begins at 5:30. I think that is right at downtown at the statue.
We're meeting at the Don Gentili statue next to 311.
At 5:30, and then I think there's refreshments and so forth at 311 Draft House.
Correct.
After that, you're certainly welcome, and we invite you to attend and participate in that. It should be a good opportunity to, again, to highlight what's going on in Piqua and what the city's all about. There will be no work session for October. It normally would be scheduled for Thursday evening, October the 9th, but no agenda items this time. So we'll give you a break for this Thursday night. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I did have a question from a local person who was questioning if the safety levy would pass, would the city be able to use that money elsewhere, or would it be legally only be able to use for safety services?
It can only be used for safety services, right. And that's the only intent. The extra 1/4% that is beyond the ballot raises about $1 million annually. The plan for that is to add 5 new police officers and to keep the 6 firefighters that we have had during the last 2 years through the SAFER grant. That grant will be expiring in the spring, and this funding will basically, of the $1 million, $962,000 would go to employing all 11 employees with benefits that are required and so forth. So it is obligated and has to go for that use, and then of course there's always equipment and everything else. So we have plenty of uses in the public safety for all the funds that are levy designated.
Okay.
I just want to comment on the committee that is being headed by Casey Hines. They're doing a wonderful job of getting the information out there as to why we need this levy so badly here in the city of Piqua. You know, we've been, not only has our crime increased along with everybody else's around, but our employees have lessened. And we really, really need this levy to come up to speed and to be able to protect our communities. And I think I mentioned once before, if you've ever had to call the Piqua Fire Department for an ambulance when somebody's fighting for their life, it's worth every penny of that levy to have them there and so well prepared.
Our police and fire departments do an outstanding job. The problem is that we, although we have reduced crime for violent crimes and DUIs or operating while intoxicated, I think is the term here in Ohio, we are one of the highest in the nation for a city our size for property crimes. That has to be dealt with because that is also part of what companies and people look at as the crime rates if they want to relocate to communities. So obviously the way that you handle that is through boots on the ground. So the 5 additional police officers will help us not only with that, with some other areas too. We're seeing our calls for fire and rescue services going up by about 20% a year. And we're having some great coverage right now with the SAFER grant. The 6 employees is giving us a lot of opportunity to respond quicker and to be able to have secure numbers to be able to answer a number of calls, which we obviously have all the time. So these are things that are needed, again, to improve and enhance our community, to be a desirable place for people to want to come to.
I agree. We'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Wilson, let's start with you.
I just want to thank all the people who helped with the both the bike rally and the down a beer, down a river, whatever the name of it is. A lot of good first year activities there, and they were really, you would have known they were first year activities because they were all pretty smooth. So I hope they'll both be back next year. I have a question on, we talked about traffic flow issues, whether they should go through the commission. I think they should all go through the commission and let us approve them or not in the future, because it would help us publicize what the item is, so we get the information out, we get input from the citizens, and we can talk it over. I think a lot of the problems we have on 25A is people didn't know what it was, and it happened, and then it caused problems after the fact. So in the future, I would propose that all traffic flow decisions go through the commission, and we can talk it over and get the information out before we do it, instead of trying to explain it after the fact. And I don't know how we go about doing this, but I think it would cause a lot less problems on future events. So is that, do we have to have a resolution to do that, or just a vote, or I don't know how would you would propose to do that?
I don't know. I think that those studies that are done prior to those changes, Joe, probably are done by people who really understand the traffic flow.
I understand that, but I think we should still have input. We should give people the information before we do it, not afterwards. We're getting so many negative comments on that, and it's not so much, I think, the bike path. It's just the fact we did it without telling people. And I think we need to do that. And
we'll dock Gary a month's pay. How's that?
No, let's change the policy on how we do traffic flow.
No,
and
I
if we would all
think
agree
that
with
would be something that would be better served discussed in a work session, Joe. I mean, I don't think we can really solve anything with it tonight. That we maybe could discuss that, Gary, in the future in a work session. How the process works and how we might have input into it, or if that would be advantageous or to a disadvantage. I think we could discuss that at a work session.
Yeah, I just think it's important we get this out here, because I assumed all traffic flow issues did go through the commission. So, and anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. That's all I have.
We'll look at that.
I guess the point I would make is if every traffic flow, every stop sign and everything goes through the commission, we're
we're going to bog down.
Well, maybe we need to define it more, but that was a decision we should have had input on beforehand, I think, and I think we're paying the consequences for it now.
Did we not have some information on that at one time, Amy, when you were looking at the plan, or?
This item goes before the Planning Commission. All of my capital improvement projects do, and the Planning Commission then endorses these projects. But specifically, no, I don't think this one came through City Commission, but we had the endorsement of the Planning Commission.
Okay, so it's the Planning Commission that looks at them, okay?
Yeah, and that's not good enough,
Uh,
in my opinion.
Well, I think that's a discussion we need to have, and I'm not sure I agree with the commission having to look at every single thing that
Well,
that
we
is
could
done.
figure that out,
and,
but this one we
yeah.
should have. That's all I have.
Yeah, okay, Commissioner Terry.
Well, I've had all kinds of interesting comments lately, and you can imagine it takes me a really long time to get through the grocery store.
All of us.
I've heard so much about the road, but we've talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about it. I've heard about people complaining about people having constant garage sales. And at this time, on the city website, there's a bulletin about garage sales, yard sales, porch sales, and there are rules and regulations that bind these people. You're only supposed to have 4 sales at the same location during any 12-month period. And they can't be, their frequency is outlined. They have to be at least 6 weeks between the sales. They can only last 3 consecutive days. They can only be from 8A to 8P. And it's, there's a lot of information. It's on the city website. It's a zoning bulletin having to do with garage sales and yard sales. And I think this is a neighborhood thing. This is part of being a good neighbor, which is what I'm going to talk about. You know, when you have a garage sale all the time, you're enticing people to come to your neighborhood. There might not be parking spaces for everybody, so you might make some enemies out of your neighbors, which isn't a good idea. You need to think about the other people in your neighborhood besides just you. And that just all has to do with neighborliness and getting along in the neighborhood and in the city. We have older areas of the city that are not governed by covenants and rules for the subdivision and so forth, like we've got in the newer parts of the city. And so I think those places are especially prone to people taking advantage of these sort of things. I've got a picture also, which this complaint came to me. This picture was taken on Lindsay Street. I think we took it on Sunday. I don't know if you can see it. But anyway, this is trash that was laying in the street. And I didn't know about it until the weekend, and of course we couldn't get out and pick it up. So it should have been picked up today, which I'm sure it was. Today was the day for pickup. But people need to know that you don't put your trash out before 24 hours before the trash man gets there. Don't put this stuff in the street. Don't make a mess like this. This stuff blows all over the neighborhood, and you talk about not being neighborly. I can't think of a worse thing that you could possibly do than something like this. And you talk about wanting people to come into our community and to see what it looks like. These people are killing us. They're really hurting us. They're hurting our reputation. They're hurting the neighborhoods. They're hurting their own neighbors. And I think that's a crime. Then we were talking about the people that won the Residents' Pride Awards. I am so pleased to know that there are so many people in Piqua that take good care of their properties. We went by each one, as I always do, when we are notified who has been the winner, and we look at the properties, and the selection committee does a great job because these people definitely deserve to be honored. However, most of the neighborhoods, I think these people really affect their neighbors because they keep their property to such a high standard that I believe it brings up the whole neighborhood. However, the gentleman who lives on the corner of Virginia Street and Camp has to look across the street at this. I don't know if you can see that picture very well. There's stuff growing up all over the house. You can hardly see the house for the stuff growing up. There's long grass in the front yard, and you talk about a blight in the neighborhood. He gets to look, this fella gets to look at that wonderful house at 901 Camp Street every day, and the gentleman at 901 Camp Street has to look across the street and see this. Not a very good example of people being neighborly. And this is another example of people who are bringing our city down. I don't know if they realize what they're doing, but they're doing it. And this also impedes people coming to our city. It impedes ongoing industrialization and attracting people to our neighborhoods and attracting people to come here, settle down with their families, and work and start businesses and hire people. This impedes that process. So I just want to remind people, while we're talking about the folks who take care of their property, let's all of us take care of our property. Let's all of us be inspired by those people and not let them have to look at this kind of a mess across the street from them. All the other neighborhoods look beautiful, I must say. I also want to talk about congratulate the Rotarians for 100 years of service to our community. I know my father-in-law, Joe Terry, was a Rotarian for many, many years, and he enjoyed having perfect attendance. And it was something that he always tried to do. And whenever they were out of town, the first thing he would do would be to find out where the Rotary meeting was, so he didn't miss a Rotary meeting. Many years. He was a Paul Harris Fellow, and he enjoyed the Rotary so much. It's always been a really, really good organization in our town, and I know it will continue to be so. Also, I'm glad to hear about the Walking to Schools proclamation, and it's good to hear that we're encouraging the children to walk to school. However, I'm wondering, when I drop off my granddaughter, which I'm part of the problem, unfortunately, but I don't do it very often, the number of cars that line up to drop off the kids is amazing. And I'm wondering, where are these kids? I mean, shouldn't they be walking? They're not on the bus, and they're not walking, so you have the car traffic. It's amazing to me, and also amazing to me when I see half-empty buses driving around town. So I hope that this helps promote walking to school by the children and bicycling to school. But I think that would be a helpful thing for everybody. I'm congratulating the committee for the Bike Fest. I was downtown. I did not win the Harley. Very disappointed. And but it was a great time, and the weather was beautifully done. And Russ, if you have somebody that you know that takes care of the weather, you need to get together with Lorna, because she could use some help with that. Then over the weekend too, we had the Down the Beer and Down the River party, and that was a good fundraiser. And I have to say that the people who step up and have these parties and these opportunities for people to come downtown and get together for recreation and just for fun in the city, we have to owe them a great deal of thanks for stepping up. And they're not doing that for their own can't say it, for their own situation. They're doing it for the good of the community and getting together and having people have a good time together. And so I congratulate all the people that give of themselves for no reason but just to promote the city. I think I'm finished with all that I have to say because everything was already spoken about earlier. But I really do like the fact that we reward people for taking care of their neighbors and their neighborhoods. But I also want everybody to realize that this is an important thing. And let's all get on the bandwagon and do those sort of things, because some of this blighted stuff just is a real eyesore to the city of Piqua. That's all I have.
Well, Judy, I'm
Aren't
really
you tired
sorry.
of hearing from me?
Yeah, no, I'm just really sorry you didn't win that motorcycle, because I think you'd make a great biker chick.
I do too.
Yeah, yeah. Too bad. Maybe next year.
Maybe.
Okay. Let's go to John.
I would like to thank and congratulate all the citizens of Piqua that do things for the city of Piqua, that plan these events, that help with these events, because without them, Piqua wouldn't be as nice a place to be as it is. And that's it.
Thank you, John. And Mr. Vogt.
Well, you know, we've talked about the striping of the streets.
You can have
You know, when you go into a new community, if you're driving down the road and you drive into a town that has turning lanes, driving lane, bike lane, you're going to stop and call the city commission for a resolution to pronounce this is the way it is. You're going to take and pay close attention, and you're going to drive very carefully. And you're not going to get in any trouble. That's all it takes for down there on 25A. Pay attention, drive it very carefully. Second time you go down there, it's a piece of cake, okay? I looked at it, and the first time I was there, I was kind of confused. I'm a member of the Over the Hill gang. You know, change is tough for an old man. But, man, I don't mind it at all. I thought, as a matter of fact, it ended the racetrack that was there. There's no more racetrack there. And you know, I just get thinking about economic development. And the organization that come and checked our city out commented on that. They commented on, boy, this will draw people. People like this. The younger people like this. The older people aren't too much in favor of it because they're too old to ride the bike, okay? If they're not too old to ride the bike, they've been riding it for a long time and they're in shape. I'll go in a wagon if somebody pulls me. But I think it's a good deal. Now, the remarks we're getting on this right now are negative. Negative. Several years ago, we had enough negativity to last this city a century with the recall and everything else. We were the talk of the area. Economic development, I do believe, was hindered because
Absolutely.
of that negative situation. Okay, here we go. If I was a person wanting to expand my business or move my business, and so I'm going to watch the commission meeting in Piqua High tonight and see how they operate. Okay, we did our ordinances, then we get up here and we have the negativity, second guessing the commission and the city commissioner, the city manager. Do I want to get involved in something like this? At any kind of change, there's negativity. And by the way, Brad, you give us 6 months. What are you going to do in 6 months? Move? Is that your ultimatum? You give us 6 months to get this. You don't do that. Okay? Let's stop second guessing the city manager. Stop second guessing the commission. We hired the city staff. They are professionals. They know what they are doing. And the different things that have come up if Gary has any questions or thinks there's a question about something, he will contact the commission and say, what do you think about this? And if there is some kind of concern, we'll have a work session. We don't go second guessing a paid professional that has a track record that is so great as Gary from the places he's been to make those Fishers, Indiana, net so successful. So let's stop second guessing the management, and let's get rid of the negative comments, and maybe we could get some economic development. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Everybody has congratulated the Residents' Pride winners, Ross, you and your committee, and all the good things, so I'm not going to reiterate all of those. The only thing that I would like to say is if I've seemed to be a little missing over the last month, my husband and I have had a great time with illness this past, not a great time, but a big time with illness over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I tell you, it brings to mind, and you really understand what it means to live in a community like Piqua. The kindnesses, the cards, the calls, the food, everything that has been done for us by this community, and the love that has been shown, I just can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. We're doing better. We're going to get through this, and I just tell you, this is the best town in the world, and it's the best place to live. And I just thank from the bottom of my heart everyone who has prayed for us, who have sent their thoughts to us, and it's a wonderful community, and I'm so proud to be able to serve as mayor in this community. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.